I like to think of life as a game. Just seems to make things a little simpler for me. Now, it's a game that you don't necessarily win, you just kind of go through it until it's over. But how much can you enjoy the game while you're in it, I suppose is the point. It has all these little mini meta games that you can play within it, like you got romance options. There's currency that you can earn. Tons of little collectibles. Cars to drive, meals to try, lore to study. The options are essentially limitless, and above all of that, fueling it all forward is basically the subject of my last video. Yeah, achievements. Your goals. What push you forward. Things that you're striving to get done to push you forward onto the next level. But one of the biggest questions I had in that last video was, what do you do when you don't have anything that you're striving for? What do you do when you have no goals? What do you do when you're stuck in the grind? Well, I know what I did. I'm sure a lot of you out there have lived this at least once or twice. You feel like you wake up and you're just in this world of gray, that nothing's really changing, that you're just getting up, going through the motions, and at the end of the day you just want to sit back, relax, and just enjoy yourself for what time you have before you have to go back to bed to get up to do it over again. Now, there are little intricacies to spice it up every now and again. Your tasks every day may not be exactly the same, although there's certainly a rhyme to them. And eventually you just get in this rhythm of stagnation for so long that sometimes you can't even see a way through it. And that can be hard, because some of the things that you once really enjoyed doing, even if it's the stuff that you're doing in your day-to-day, it just feels like it's part of the cycle, like it's not pushing you forward. And that can really suck. Because I've had that happen at my job. And I love my job. But I would get up in the morning and I would basically go through the same steps. I'd wake up and I'd probably hit the snooze button a few times because what's the point in getting up? I'm gonna get this shit done anyway, right? I'd go into work and typically that would involve sitting down with Kieran and Grant for a while and just playing through a video game and talking into a microphone. And this thing that is supposed to be like this really fun activity, playing a video game with friends. I am doing that for a living, and for some reason it's just not fun because it became part of the grind. And this can be very evident if you go back, especially if you look at some of our Platinum and Emerald Nuzlocke episodes near the middle to end. You can definitely tell when we're really enjoying ourselves and when we are pushing it. This is just a case in point that it can happen anywhere at any time with any occupation. Once it becomes part of the routine, you're still living in that gray world. So what would you do after that? Well, in order to reward myself, I would go out and I'd get a big unhealthy meal, just drive out to In-N-Out, get that double animal style Neapolitan shake. Boy, you did the work today, you deserve it. I'd go on, script with Taka and Kaiser, put my all into it. At the end of the day, I'd just sit back and watch a bunch of stuff on YouTube or maybe play a video game for a few hours before. Ticks past midnight, ticks past 1 a.m., go to bed, wake up the next morning, wash, rinse, repeat. It's a cycle. And you start losing track of time. And it's a real form of depression that can be hard to break from. So what do you do in that situation? Well, again, the brain is a tricky bitch. And there are many answers to that question. And not a single one works for everybody. It can range wildly from maybe you're focusing a little bit too much on the small details and have lost sight of the bigger picture. So you got to kind of take a step back and take a bigger, broader look at your life and see what you're not getting to or what you really want to do. Or maybe you're focusing too much on the big picture. I got to get this done so I can put this money away so that I can actually live at the end of my life, and now you're not living or appreciating the little things within it. Or maybe there is some form of chemical imbalance in your brain that requires some sort of rebalancing. And by the way, I want to throw this out there. I know it has been shouted from the rooftops by pretty much everybody, but seeking help and getting help is never, ever a weakness. If you need help dealing with your issues, finding a therapist or a psychiatrist, needing medication, those are not bad things. In fact, knowing when you need to seek help and going out to find it is a sign of strength. Unfortunately, there aren't enough people out there that are willing to admit when they need it. I myself have been in that boat. But yeah, long story short, there are many roads out of this same predicament. But I'll give you mine. One thing that I decided to start doing was I decided to start going for small goals, so that I felt like I was achieving something outside of the day-to-day, these are the things I need to get done sort of grind. These things range from make sure I'm working out X days a week, writing once a night in my journal to track down my thoughts, and then eventually it was reading one book a month. And for whatever reason, the first book I decided to open up was The One Thing by Gary Keller and Jay Papasan. Now, this book gave me a huge paradigm shift on life and allowed me to focus on one big thing that was actually really holding me back. And that was the fact that I was really scattered in my attention on basically not having any one thing to focus on. I highly recommend checking out this book in full, but to give kind of a brief summary, essentially, you want to think about one thing that you really want in life. Focus on what exactly is your ideal life. Where do you want to be in your golden years or in general? Do you want to have a nice cabin out in the snowy mountains somewhere, just living with a wood fire stove and going skiing every once and again? Do you want to live out on a beach? Do you want to live in a big metropolis like New York City, surrounded by so many different cultures and foods and just so many things to do? Really think about where you want to be. What is your ideal life? And then you ask what this book likes to call, I believe, the focusing question. And that question is, what's the one thing I can do, such as by doing it, that everything else will become easier or unnecessary in regards to your goal? Now, obviously, this question has many facets to it, as there are many things that must be achieved to get your ideal life. But focusing on one of those aspects at a time can really help to drive you forward. You take that big goal, that ideal life, and you start breaking it into pieces. Start making it more manageable. Here's what I want to be doing for a living. Here's how physically fit I want to be. Here's where I want to live. Here's what I want my monetary status to be. And you start breaking those down. For example, your ideal career. What skill sets do you need? Now you break that down. You have a few goals that you want to achieve there. What one thing can I do to improve my ability with this skill, so that it can be a sufficient level to make everything else easier to achieve that next tier of goal? And you do that with the next skill and the next skill and the next skill. And essentially by dedicating just a few hours a day to that one thing that you want to start working towards, you start building. And by starting to achieve more and more within that, you start to build this self-confidence within yourself, this can-do attitude, so to speak. The key is to be able to The key is to be able to focus on the small scale while being able to take a step back and looking at the overall picture of your life. Both the parts that you have completed so far and the parts that you want to complete. So by starting out with these smaller goals, working out a bit more often, journaling a bit more often, reading more often, I started to get the confidence that I needed to start going towards other goals and refocusing on bigger goals. Now, I know giving the career example brings up the big question of what if I have no career ambitions? And that brings up the question of vocation. And vocation is something that can be very, very difficult to find or figure out. I know a lot of people in my life who just don't really have that drive to really do that one thing, that this is what I want to dedicate my life to sort of career. And that's okay. Sometimes what you're doing to get revenue is an end to justify the means. Sometimes it takes a lot of time and introspection to really find what it is that's kind of driving you, that thing that you really want to devote yourself to, that career that you can really feel like you're invested in and making a difference and getting that drive out there every single time you do it. For me, I was very lucky to discover what I liked doing early on. I liked entertaining people. I liked making people feel things. So I've devoted essentially the entirety of my adult life getting to where I am right now. And I intend to continue pushing forward. But not everybody discovers that in themselves, what exactly they want to do. Unfortunately, there's no really good answer for how to really discover that. Best advice I can give you on that front is to talk to the people in your life, your family, your friends, some of the people who might know you better than you know yourself at times. And be willing to have those real conversations about life and direction. Getting comfortable with that is a process in and of itself. Some people really just hold themselves to those surface level, hey, did you see this movie? Or, hey, that weather's pretty nice, huh? Conversations that just don't really take you anywhere. And if for whatever reason you just cannot have these conversations with those people in your life, look for a counselor if you're still in school. Those people are there specifically for this kind of shit most of the time. And if you're not still in school, then I reiterate, looking for help is never a weakness. Because while introspection, self-reflection, and, self-diagnosis can really help for some things, sometimes you don't ask yourself the right questions. And you gotta find somebody who can. But while you're on that journey of self-discovery and reflection, start focusing on things that you know you want to improve, things that you know you want to do. And then if it's a bigger goal, start breaking it down into pieces. What do you gotta do to make this easier? And then if that's a slightly larger goal in and of itself, what do you have to do to make that easier? Build up. Use all these little micro processes until your macro life is the way you want it. And every time you hit a milestone, hear that in your head, because you're that much closer to getting where you want to be. I hope you guys found this video helpful, and if you did, I'd really appreciate it if you slap that thumbs up button down there, and in the comments, of all the bigger goals that you have, what's a good way that you can break that down and make it more manageable? What one thing can you do right now to make that goal just a little bit easier to achieve in the future? And of course, if you think somebody else in your life could benefit from this video, please feel free to share it to them. I greatly appreciate anybody that shares this kind of stuff around. Also, if you're interested in checking out The One Thing, I'll have a link to it in the description so you can go and grab it and read it however you want. And for sticking around this long, here's a little bubble bonus tip for you to really help you start getting going and hitting those goals. It might be a pain in the ass to do, but one thing that really helped me out was getting up at least 1 hour earlier than I was previously getting up. This might mean needing to get to sleep a little earlier, but if you want to tack this on at the end of the day, feel free. I just find I'm more productive in the morning. But getting up just a little bit earlier and being able to focus on the thing that you want to achieve early in the day really helps you get that shit done. Plus, if you start off your day by doing something that makes you kind of proud of yourself, it really propels you forward and makes you feel all that more energized and turns that gray world just a little bit more vibrant. So yeah, with that done, here's that part where everything's popping up around me again. And you can feel free to click on them to go to different videos. Don't really know what they are because I don't usually select them individually, but they might be other parts of this series. Or maybe they're older videos of mine that I have never taken down and may or may not be embarrassed by. Feel free to check them out.